Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, this is John and Kelsey, and we're so excited to share our testimony with you. We've shared bits and pieces, but we really wanted to give you like a full version of our testimony in video form. So you are joining us here at Fiddler's Green Farm in the Good Room. So as we have gotten ready to become full-time missionaries and that whole process came through, what we realized is there's just not a whole lot of people who've shared their story of that process. And what we wanted to do is to share our story, everything that came about. Because we know people right now who feel that the Lord has called them to missions, but they're not yet. And so we want to encourage them and anyone else. You can do this. If the Lord has called you to missions, you can do it. And so while we've only been in country as of now, like 4 months, we're not seasoned professional missionaries, but we have learned quite a bit in that time. So we're making a video series, and this is the first in that series that's going to walk you through what we've learned, and hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. It hasn't been perfect, but the Lord has been so good. And we're excited for what He is doing. And so this video, we're going to share our testimony and kind of the whole story. I grew up in Texas, and I joined the Navy when I was, 22? I forget. And I ended up getting stationed in Washington State, and I met my wife at a church there. So we got married in 2007, and I'm going to let Kelsey tell you a little bit about her history before that.
I grew up primarily in Washington State. In the early 2000s, a friend of mine introduced me to the Revival in Belfast CDs by Rob and Mark. There was a couple of them, and I started listening to those like on repeat, just everywhere, and really enjoyed the music, but it also kind of brought back the connections that my family has to Ireland. And so I listened to those for a few years, and I graduated college in December of 2005. I thought, I need to celebrate, I want to go do something. And so I saw that there was a Rob and Mark, Chris Tomlin, Matt Redman concert happening in Belfast in January of 2006. I thought, that's where I'm going to be. So I booked myself a ticket and I came and visited. The concert was amazing, but I just fell in love with the country. The people looked out for me everywhere that I went, and they were really friendly and loved the country, they loved the history, all of it. So I came home, and having just graduated from college, I thought, I don't want to just settle down into my career and then that kind of ends up being it. I really wanted to have more experience. I wanted to go live in another country and do other things. And so I began looking into teaching opportunities in other countries, but they all want you to have 2 years teaching experience before they hire you, which makes sense. But that kind of cut me out because I had just graduated from college. I didn't have 2 years. So I found Dublin Christian Mission in Dublin, Ireland, which is a mission that works with inner city youth and families. And they had several different programs running at the time. And so summer of 2006, I flew out and I joined the team for a year, and it was absolutely amazing, life-changing. It really marked me, made great friends, but really I knew that God had called me to Ireland. And so I came back and we got married, and my heart still really burned for Ireland, but we got married and started having kids and businesses and all of that, and so I had kind of just put it on the shelf.
And so we had been married in 2007, and I worked for the church that we met at, which was Calvary Chapel, Silverdale, and there was a lot that I couldn't work out in my heart for what my relationship with the Lord was supposed to look like. I started getting into video, and I really enjoyed that, and I did worship at the church, but I felt like something was missing, and I couldn't really put my finger on what that was. And then in 2018, well, just before that, there's a ministry called Walk in the Light International. That's they're based in Washington State, but they have schools in Burkina Faso in West Africa, and they dig wells and build health centers. And were doing a fundraiser at our church, and I met the CEO, Katie Cornell, and I said, I've got a camera, you need to take me to Africa with you. And it took a couple of times asking. They already had somebody to do video for them, but then in June 2018, I got to go, and that was where the Lord started really challenging everything about what I knew of the Lord, what I knew of the Bible, and what my life was supposed to look like. In one of these villages, there was a baby that had been raised from the dead just 2 weeks before we got there, and everybody that I spoke to confirmed that that really happens. And that was the first step that really started challenging my faith. And I just had this prayer that I started saying, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And a couple of months later, after I'd gotten back, I was having tremendous anxiety attacks, unbelievable. I could not control. Probably like 4 or 5, 6 times a day, I would shut down, and I couldn't control it in any way. For years I had anxiety, but this was like the highest point it had ever been. And then one day after church, I called Tom, that's Katie's husband, the pastor of a church in Belfair. He had led the mission trip to Africa, so I had gotten to know him there. I called him. I didn't even know why. I said, Tom, I'm having anxiety attacks, and I don't even know why I called you. I just felt like I was supposed to. He said, come over and we'll pray for you. And so Tom, Katie, and Romeo, who's from Burkina Faso, they prayed for me. And they said, anxiety is a spirit, and we're going to tell it to leave. And that just sounded strange to me, but I was like, okay, I'll go with it. And sure enough, that was the end of anxiety. It left that day. And instantly, Kelsey could tell something was different about me. And then she got the opportunity to have a conversation with Tom and ask some questions about that.
I did. It was at the Walk in the Light annual fundraiser dinner, and I, had just kind of been hearing from John what had happened, and I had a lot of questions, and so Tom was really gracious, and, they're hosting the event, and he took time afterwards and probably spent 20, 30 minutes just explaining kind of the theology and the biblical basis for deliverance and what it is and how, spiritual things operate. And I just went, wow. He was describing so many different, giving testimonies and describing how different things operate and how it affects people. And I was identifying with a lot of the things that he was saying. And I thought, oh, finally there's an answer for, your Christian walk should look this way, but it wasn't. And I couldn't get from here to there. It just didn't matter how much I prayed or read my Bible or went to church. I couldn't get it to look like it was supposed to look like in the Bible. And so I was like, when can you pray for me? I want this right now. And so he recommended a book to read. I downloaded it on my phone that night and couldn't put it down. I just wanted more. And I think it was about a week later that I went to their house, and for a couple of hours they prayed deliverance over me. And it was a night and day difference. Just the feeling of freedom and finally so many thoughts that I just thought were just normal to have were gone. There was peace, there was quiet. I could sleep better without racing thoughts. And it completely changed my outlook, and it gave me hope that there was more for the Christian walk than what I had experienced up to that point.
And instantly our marriage was perfected, and we never had an argument again. I'm kidding.
Liar.
I'm kidding. But I would say our marriage drastically improved that summer, and it has been ever since. Suddenly, things that between us that had been issues started to drop off. Things that I thought maybe we should go to counseling for, or read some books. Like many of the issues that were causing turmoil in our marriage started to drop off. And then the ones that didn't immediately drop off, we started getting resources for how to address those. And this changed our marriage, it changed the way we parent our children, but most importantly, it changed our relationship with God. And so we started walking with Tom and Katie, and that shifted into the beginning of 2019. We started attending the church that Tom was pastoring at the time, New Life North Mason, and then only a couple of months later, he made the announcement that they were launching Sozo Church and Sozo School of Supernatural Ministry. It's called Sozo School of Ministry now. So we were part of that, and immediately I enrolled in the School of Ministry, and Kelsey did the following year. And we started being discipled by them, and started seeing all sorts of acceleration in our spiritual life. In every area of our life, we started seeing improvement, and that was an amazing experience. And with that, there was also the launching of an inner healing center or counseling center.
So in the process of Sozo Church kind of developing and the walk that the leaders were taking is, they came in, Tom and Katie were new to deliverance when we met them, and they were walking it out and they were learning more, and soon some people came that introduced inner healing, and then they started partnering inner healing with deliverance and started seeing even more freedom and even more healing for people, and it was unlocking things that deliverance hadn't unlocked by itself, and we started walking in this. And I had a few inner healing sessions for myself, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. But then I started getting trained in doing inner healing with other people, and it was like, this was my call. I love it. I started seeing, because it doesn't just make people feel better, but people were getting healed of addictions, they're getting healed of diseases, chronic, lifelong genetic diseases that doctors say there's no healing, it's lifelong medication. People are getting set free from that. Marriages are getting healed, trauma is getting healed, like PTSD and physical trauma is getting healed, and people's marriages are changing, their families are changing. All of these things are happening because of these encounters that people are having with Jesus in these inner healing sessions. And that's the beautiful thing of it, is it's just walking people to Jesus and letting Jesus minister to them. And so I kind of got hooked on that and just really enjoyed doing that. And so that kind of really just became a passion, and I wanted to be able to carry that into other places and other nations as well.
Yeah, and when I think it was January, or no, it was April 2021, I had a background in video. I started doing video at Calvary Chapel, Silverdale. I started my own video business, but I got a very specific word from the Lord in early 2021 that the Lord wanted me to use video to show people Him. And specifically, I felt a calling to go where the missionaries are. There's missionaries that I've known throughout my life who kind of go off to another country and you kind of forget about them because they don't have a lot of marketing material or just storytelling in general like we're doing now. And I felt in 2021 this call to shift the way that I think about video for the mission field. But what I thought at the time was, I'm going to go where the missionaries are, not we're going to become missionaries. So talk about moving to Belfair.
So we'd been living in Silverdale. We'd bought our house about a year after we got married, and it just kind of became this thing where I just got to a point where I was like, I really want out of this house. We had how many kids? We had 3. The fourth was born, the fourth was born the year before we moved. And it just started feeling really crowded. And I think it was really the prompting of the Lord. He was like, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. And the housing market was way up. If you were selling, it was a great time to sell. So I called our friend and I was like, hey, it's time, we got to do this. But the problem was that because the housing market was so high, trying to find anything else to move into, suddenly all the houses that were actually an improvement for us were way out of our price range. And so I started praying about it, and I saw on Facebook a friend had started a homeschool studio in Belfair, but unfortunately she started it February of 2020, and the next month everything was shut down. And so the studio had been sitting empty. It was a little house and it had been sitting empty, and I thought, you know what, let me just ask, because the worst she could say is no. So I messaged her and I said, would you consider renting this house to us? We're wanting something. At the time we thought we were going to build. And so we thought, we just want something we can stay in the interim until we can build a house. And she said, yeah, you know what? I had just been praying. The Lord had been telling me maybe it's time to rent it out, but I didn't want to. He was going to have to land renters in my lap. And so he did. He landed renters in her lap, and it was amazing. And so that was January 1st of 2021. And by February, beginning of February, we moved out of our house and into the rental, finished getting our house ready, and put it up on the market. And we closed on our house by the end of April that year.
So in April 2021, we were going to an evangelism conference called City Quake in Tacoma, and Tom ended up riding with us. And on the way there, he was just talking about like what could the next season hold. And so he was just striking up conversation and said, where should we plant a church? If we were to plant another church, thinking someplace local. And Kelsey says, well, if we've already got Sozo Church in Belfair, why not Sozo Church in Belfast? And Tom wasn't fazed by that. Kelsey and I both clearly thought that was a joke, but Tom was like, okay.
Don't joke with an apostle.
Don't joke with an apostle. So that quickly turned into other people on leadership at the church saying, actually, we knew that you were going to go to Ireland probably. And while we were at the conference, several people we didn't know had specific words for us about going into the mission field. And we were like, this is news to us. We had never thought about becoming missionaries. So that happened. And then we started reaching out to churches in Northern Ireland. Keep in mind, this is early 2021. So still a lot of COVID shutdown. And many of the churches that we reached out to were shut down, and they were like, we're not sure when or if we'll reopen. But through kind of a strange connection, we ended up meeting Aaron and Tana, who are missionaries from the U.S. at Center 61. Met Aaron, had a Zoom chat with him, and then he said we should meet Neil. And so then not long after that, I think this would have been late summer 2021, we had a Zoom chat with the two of us and Aaron and Neil, and the Holy Spirit was all over it, and we knew, okay, this is where we're going. He told us about Center 61, a church that's centered on Isaiah 61, which is literally a description of what Sozo is. So we're like, this is very, very good, similar DNA. And ever since then, the Lord was just confirming more and more, this is the place to go.
Yeah. So in our conversation, one of the things that, it was aligning vision and, really seeing what the Lord was doing here, but you can't just up and move from one country to another. There's laws, there's requirements. And so having done research already, because as soon as I started really feeling like, that thing I'd put up on the shelf, God was saying, here, you can take it down again. And started looking at like, what would it take? What are the avenues that we could get there? Because part of me was just ready to just come and live here. I didn't care what we did or how we did it. I just wanted to come and live here. And this time it was very specifically Northern Ireland versus the Republic of Ireland. And so started doing research, and really the only avenue, they really protect their jobs and things here. The really only avenue for us and our qualifications was to come as ministers of religion. And so that was partly why we were reaching out to churches, because we needed somebody to be able to sponsor us. So you have to have a sponsor for your visa, somebody that says, yes, we want them to come here for this specific purpose, and you have to appeal to the government. You have to apply to them, and they have to give permission for you to enter into the country and to live here and to stay. And so through that was a lengthy process. Center 61 didn't yet even have their charitable organization status, which is required for being able to sponsor somebody. But from August to January, we had several conversations with them, emails back and forth, just seeing what the Lord was doing. And He just made it so clear that this was the connection for us. And Center 61 came back and said, yes, we want to sponsor you. And so they got their charitable organization status and then applied to be able to sponsor us. And so then began the process of, it's quite expensive actually to get a visa, especially for a family of 6. This isn't just, 1 or 2 people going over. When I went, by myself, it was a couple $1,000, especially at the time with the exchange rate. Things had gotten a little bit more expensive. And so we just started praying about it and seeing what the Lord was going to do, and getting our, the paperwork. You have to have passports for all of the kids. So we started just getting all of those things lined up and in order. And then summer of 2022, we began the application process for the visas for everybody. And it was quite a lengthy process. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of background checks and all these things that we had to do and had to get in order. But the Lord provided, and He provided the complete full amount of our sponsorship amount, because our visa amount. It's a visa application, and it's also paying for our health care while we're here. You have to pay it all up front for every person for every year that you're in the country. And so it was quite a large sum all at once, but it was one of those reminders and indicators that God was sending us, and He was going to provide that. And there's no way we could have done this on our own. If we had tried, we would have failed. And we tried a few ways on our own, and they failed. But God was faithful, and He saw us through that.
So here we are in Northern Ireland. We arrived in October 2022, and it's been just a blessing ever since. The church family has come around us, and they've been so supportive, so loving. They filled our fridge when we showed up, and we were able to buy some furniture once we moved into Fiddler's Green farmhouse here, and everything about it has been wonderful. And we're watching the kids thrive here. Since we were already homeschooling them, there was a pretty easy transition there, but they're making friends. There's a group that they go and hang out with on Friday evenings, a bunch of other kids their age, and then there's several kids their age at the church. So just making friends, having a good time. There's lots of trails that we go walking on around here, and we're just have mostly been settling up until this point. We're getting going with some of the ministry things this month, and we're just so excited for what the Lord's doing here. He's doing the same thing here that He was doing in Washington. He's building family, and that's what we're here to do: build family and get more people free, find freedom. The same way that we started getting freedom from the anxiety and depression and just all sorts of things back in 2018. That's what we're here to do, is to bring freedom to the captives. And we're so thankful to everyone who has been financially partnering with us up until this time. I am currently looking for work, so we're at 3/4 of the amount that we need to be full-time missionaries, to where we don't need any outside work. And so until we reach there, I'm going to be working, looking for a job now. I've got my application out at several different places. And if you would like to partner with us financially, is it Ardor Ministries 412.org?
ArdorMinistries.org.
ArdorMinistries.org is our website. It's right here on the bottom of the video. You'll see a tab there in the menu for Give, And so if you would like to give us a one-time donation, or if you'd like to partner with us on a monthly basis, that would be amazing. Thank you for your prayers. We covet your prayers. This has been a wonderful, wonderful experience, but it has not been easy. There's been much testing in this season, and the testing is not coming to an end. So we are so excited to be part of what the Lord is doing here, and we'd be excited for you to be part of it with us, either through prayer or partnering financially. And stay tuned. We will have more videos coming your way about the process of becoming full-time missionaries in a foreign nation. God bless you.